Welcome to Men of the Times. On this episode, we are discussing the most exciting prospective candidate of the 2024 general election cycle, RFK Jr., and his recent appearance on the Joe Rogan Show, where he discusses his uncle, his presidency, and the beginning of the disturbing military-industrial complex which is now engulfed America's political scene. So we hope you enjoy it, and because we're going to keep talking about it here on Men of the Times.
My uncle, John Kennedy, did that. He refused to go to war. So he was surrounded by military-industrial complex, and he learned very early and an intelligence apparatus that he realized early on that the purpose of the CIA and the intelligence apparatus was to create a constant pipeline of new wars for the military-industrial complex. 3 days before he took the oath of office, Eisenhower, who was the outgoing president, gave what is probably the most important speech in American history, which was, where he warned against the military-industrial complex. I was at my uncle's inauguration. I was in Washington that day as a 6-year-old boy. And I was sitting on the stands behind him, in front of him during his inauguration. And he understood that. And 2 months later, the military and intelligence came to him and said, we got to invade Cuba. And he was like, I'm not going to Cuba, and I'm not going to let the military. And they said, well, we got all these Cubans trained, and they're going to go attack Castro. And he said, well, we can't, the U.S. government can't be doing that. We can't be attacking. I don't like what Castro's doing down there, but it's not the United States' job to dictate what kind of governments other countries have. And they said, well, as soon as they land, there's going to be a big revolution. Everybody's going to rise up, and they're going to overthrow Castro. And he said, well, you can't use the U.S. military. And they ended up bringing those guys over with United Fruit boats. And in the middle of it, in the night, they came to him and said, they're getting wiped out on the beach, and you need to send in the military and invade. And he said, we're not going to do it. And he stepped out of that meeting, and he realized they had been lying to him and trying to trick him. And he said, I want to take the CIA and shatter it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. And then, for the next 1,000 days of his presidency, he was at war with his military and intelligence apparatus. They tried to get him to go into Laos. He said no. They tried to get him to go into Vietnam with combat troops. They said that we need 250,000 combat troops. He refused. Everybody around him wanted him to go into Vietnam. He sent 16,000 military advisors. That's fewer people than he sent to get James Meredith into Ole Miss in Jackson, Mississippi, to get one black man into school. He sent fewer in Vietnam. They weren't allowed to fight. Many of them did. They violated the rules of engagement. In October of 1963, he heard that some of his Green Berets had been killed over there. And he said, I want a total casualty list from Vietnam. And his aide came to him and said, 75 Americans have died. He said, that's too many. And he signed that day a national security order ordering all troops out of Vietnam, U.S. troops. The first 1,000 over the next month, and then the rest by the beginning of 1965. And then a month later, he was killed.
Okay. So much to unpack.
Okay.
It's interesting. Wow. It's almost like relearning history.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to him talk about, because this is his uncle and his dad.
Yeah. This is his nuclear. This is
I
his
mean,
family.
Granted, he was also very, very young, but I'm
Yeah.
sure he heard enough from his other uncles and
Ted
and everything else and everything.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Mm-hmm.
the way he's describing that, particularly the Bay of Pigs scenario,
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. He's also right about Eisenhower's speech, one of the most
Yeah,
important speeches.
Absolutely.
apart from
under
Abraham Lincoln and
yeah.
George Washington and a few other
But
major
but that but
speeches. But
that but that speech in which Eisenhower did warn us about the growth of the industrial military complex is one of the most underrated speeches in American history in
because
terms of its importance,
American
because it
corporations
was a
learned the
warning.
value of wars after
Yes.
World War II, how
Mm-hmm.
much money,
Can be made
because lest we forget, we weren't involved for the first couple of years.
in World War II.
Right.
No,
We were just
really,
sending
still in a deep
resources.
recession
We literally
from
were just pumping shit out and sending it to the
to
Allies.
to Britain and the Soviet
Yeah.
Union.
And
Yeah.
then and there's a
So,
lot of
thank you, America.
there are a lot of historical reports that also suggest that we wanted and that we knew about Pearl Harbor coming, and they didn't do anything
Because they wanted it to happen.
because they wanted to happen to get. However, it's not just the U.S. The Allies wanted it, and I'm sorry, not Eisenhower. Roosevelt needed an excuse to get into the war,
Mm-hmm.
so they let
But
it happen to and think
to
about it.
release the chapter, because honestly, because people often forget this in history, is that um, FDR. This is one of the biggest what ifs of history, because I don't think FDR would ever have declared war on Germany until Hitler was stupid enough. This was Hitler's most catastrophic decision. Stupid enough to declare war on the United States. People forget that. Like, Hitler declared war on us. So if he hadn't, if he had been like even just an inch
Hitler made
strategic,
a lot of
he
mistakes,
made a lot of
a lot of
mistakes. Yeah,
mistakes,
yeah. But the United
namely the
States would not have
slaughter
grown.
of millions
Yeah,
and millions of
yeah.
Jews.
I do think there's a historical argument to be made that we wouldn't have fought a war with Germany unless Hitler was stupid enough to declare war on the United States, which he
Well,
was.
yeah, but we didn't even really start the war. We started the war with Japan. Japan was an ally of Hitler. Hitler declared war because of the ally alliance with
Yeah, we
Japan,
had with Japan.
and then he declared
Yeah,
war, and then that gave us
but
it gave us the onus to go
yes,
into Europe once he did that. But he was
yeah.
obligated to do that because he was allied with Japan, and Japan had done that.
That's the way he saw it. But if he
He had plans eventually of coming
confronting the
across
United States,
the
yes,
the Atlantic to the United States. That would have been fun.
I know,
I
right?
mean,
I
good luck,
know.
everybody. Everybody's got guns over here, but luckily that didn't come to pass.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, the things he's talking, getting back to the stuff
Yes, you
RFK
did.
Jr. was saying, like the Bay of Pigs and all these historical things he's saying, and the military-industrial complex, well, it does explain the history quite well. Because why would you just let a bunch of people get slaughtered? Because it was an intentional thing of the CIA wanting to, and military people backing it to, like he's saying, get JFK to go in,
Invade Cuba.
which could have created a whole host of other fucking problems.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say with Russia, right? However, one might also argue that the fact they didn't do that led to the
To
Cuban
the
Missile
Cuban Missile
Crisis.
Crisis, because Khrushchev sensed a weakness and then swept in
So
his Castro
one could
savior.
argue against what he's saying and say maybe
It's
maybe
one half
JFK
doesn't
should
the
have.
other. But the main, and this is why it's so fascinating at this point in American history, because the main criticism RFK Jr. has here is that this blob, this military-industrial complex that Eisenhower first warned us about, and his uncle and his father started having to deal with during the Kennedy administration, has come full circle now. That this blob, this military-industrial
Ukraine, Russia.
complex of CIA and of CIA and the FBI have grown so big, so powerful, so unaccountable that with the Trump presidency, they really did take down a president, because
Dude,
they
it's
didn't
beyond
like.
it's
And the
beyond that.
Durham report has proved this. Now, I don't think Donald Trump should be the president again. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. But you also cannot deny, and the Durham report has confirmed, that this unaccountable, unelected military industrial complex that includes, in my opinion, the CIA and the FBI, openly rebelled against an elected president because they
That's
didn't
not the
like
biggest
his
thing.
policies.
That's not the big thing that what it's talking about here.
That's what I think.
The bigger
That
thing.
it's become
No,
so
no,
powerful.
no. This has nothing to do.
So powerful.
Why? I don't even know why you are bringing Trump up. There's nothing. This has nothing to do with anything Trump
Well, no,
related.
no, 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 no.
This
No, no,
is this is Russia Ukraine.
no, yeah, but yes, yes.
This is
yes.
Russia Ukraine.
But that's the
This
reason.
is why maybe we didn't
but-
go into Syria.
But that is the main point. This put the character.
This has nothing to do.
No. Put the character.
This has nothing to do with
No,
Trump,
no,
other than
no.
the fact that Trump did not get us into any wars.
And that's what they were angry with him about.
I think they're angry with him about
a lot of
things.
Yeah, but the same pressures he was facing is what his father and his uncle was facing. Now, again, disclaimer: I don't think he should be the president again.
We're not getting into wars.
But the next president.
Why would we get into a war? What's the point of a war? What mutual? Who's making money in a war? Who?
The point.
Who? I ask you. Ask me. Ask you.
But the point.
Who's making money in a war? You have to ask yourself the question.
Yeah.
Who?
But the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to
How
make.
good is my Trump impression, folks?
Very good. Very good.
No, you tell me.
But the larger point I'm trying to make is whoever the next president is, whether that be a Democrat or a Republican, their biggest challenge is finally taking on this military-industrial complex.
No.
Yes.
No.
Absolutely. You don't think so?
No.
You don't
Look,
think that's the next biggest challenge that they're going to need to face?
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks.
Okay,
This is what
okay.
he's talking about. The biggest correlation right now in the world is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because, and to your point, some truth to your point is, here's what's going to happen. Biden gets reelected, the Russia-Ukraine war will continue to happen. It will not end. It will never
No.
end. DeSantis, a Republican, Trump comes back, as they were saying, like Trump said, I'll end it. I'll end that war in 24
that's
hours.
not
You need the
realistic.
power of the presidency
It's not
to do
realistic.
it. You need the power of the president. Do I think he's going to do it in 24 hours? No, I think he will end it. I think he would end it, but I don't know how long it would take for him to end it.
Mm.
But I think he would just call
And
up
what
Putin,
hand
and
he's gonna
he'd be like,
have.
Putin, what we
Yeah,
got? Let's
actually.
make a deal, Putin. What do you want? I know what Zelensky wants. What do you want, Putin? I'll give you what you want. Tell me. Let me help you. Help me help you, Putin. Yeah. Russia collusion. It comes up again.
God.
He was talking with Russia. He was the president trying to end a war.
Yeah, I know.
Seems valid.
You can see with that headline, yeah.
No, it's Trump. But what this is actually about is why the Russia-Ukraine situation is even happening, right? Because there's so many things you can go out and watch, audience. Okay,
Well,
getting
Putin did start it.
interestingly different. Well, it did he because there's he factually yes, but if you look at the context behind things and what was going on with NATO and what
How they kept
pressure was going on and the encroachment,
yeah.
so on and so forth, what was already happening between Biden and Burisma and Ukraine, and
Mhm,
all of these things are
mhm.
interconnected. Okay,
Yeah.
folks.
That's another
And-
biggie.
And so, what makes the most sense? Get Putin to engage in a conflict. And what is happening, everybody? We are funneling weapons and weapons and weapons and money
Yeah.
into the Ukraine conflict, and it is just it's making profits for all of these major corporations and the U.S. government to an extent. Because who's
Mhm.
actually paying for it? It's not Ukraine. It's not
It's
Ukraine.
us.
It's us. The European Union might be buying some of it on the behalf of Ukraine, not that much, but this is where all the money it's going to all the U.S. corporations would at some point do help the U.S. government. Even the U.S. government's funding a lot of it. So the point is, right, that it's lining the pockets of certain individuals. It's not helping anybody. People are dying needlessly. Really, none of this really needs to be happening. And Putin is probably culpable in it as well. Obviously, he's not. His hands are not clean by any means, but he's trying to do it for a multitude of reasons. He's in bed with
Mhm.
China. China wants the conflict to happen also because they're testing out the waters to see if they should invade Taiwan.
Yep.
This is all the game,
And they're
folks.
draining
It's
the
all a game.
and they're
We are
draining the
seeing war
United
games
States.
playing out in reality. It's not like the movie with Matthew Broderick where it's a video game that's actually, or Ender's Game, where you think it's a video game and it's actually having. The video game is actual life with actual people. and they know it's not a video game. They're just playing it like it's a video game, but with real life is what's actually happening. And that's the point that RFK is talking about with how these conversations in these rooms end up happening. Again, I allude to the Hamilton line. I want to be in the room where it happens. This is how these conversations go down.
Yeah.
This is how you have to think like how these people in power are thinking to really understand what is happening, why it's happening, and how it will potentially affect you in your life. Who the plebs of the world? We're all plebs because we're not
We
in the room
really
where
are.
it happens.
Yeah.
Because we didn't go to
An Ivy League
there
school.
you go. That's your catchphrase. I'm telling you. So fuck these people from Ivy League schools. That's your catchphrase.
The elite class
The
in their
elite
Ivy
class,
League school.
Are you Akers? Doggone. Yeah. So that's what's going on. That's what he's talking about. It happened back then. It's continuing to happen now. And all they're doing is it's becoming almost harder to find conflicts to fund. I mean, there's a massive industry. I mean, fuck, stuff going on in the Philippines. I mean, Africa is always still, but they need a major conflict to actually create that next
And
situation.
this really is the
And then what do they do?
first-
Oh, support Ukraine. Obviously, I support Ukraine over Russia,
Yeah,
regardless,
absolutely.
obviously. But I mean, come on, everybody's a little bit culpable here, and there's all kinds of crazy other conspiracy theories about what some Ukrainian soldiers are actually Nazis. You've seen this type of shit. There's a lot of interesting. We're
Well-
not going to get into that. We're talking about RFK.
No,
But
yeah.
the point is, this is all part of this military industrial complex that he's talking about. And these people it is difficult being president because they're constantly trying to get. I maybe give credit to Obama, actually, now
Oh,
that I've
really?
heard about this. Well, think about it, right? He kept drawing the red line in the sand with Syria,
And then never actually
but then
do
never did
anything
anything.
about it.
Maybe these conversations were happening. They were trying to get
To
him
push
to
him to
get into. Yeah,
So
'cause
why
it's
do you,
just
why
money,
do you
money,
think
money,
he
money, money.
didn't go into Syria, Obama?
That's that's a tough question. I
Yeah,
mean,
that really
there's
is
the
that-
original answer that I would have thought of, which is he didn't really actually want to get in conflict because he's a bit of a, let's say, lily-livered individual who didn't really actually want to get into war zones when we're already in Afghanistan and Iraq at the
Yeah.
time. But also,
But
no, let's not get involved in another conflict in the Middle East. But
I'm sure Iran had something to do with it as well, because Iran
probably,
and
yeah,
the
they did the
Shiites
Iran
are
deal. Yeah,
very. Iran is very.
yeah. He was
friendly
trying to buddy with
Assad.
Iran.
Yeah, and Iran is
That
and Iran
nuclear
is very
deal was one of the
friendly
worst
Assad.
deals of all time.
Yeah, I know.
But
And-
there's some elements of that. I mean, Obama's foreign policy was fucking terrible, regardless, in general. But it's all. I mean, based on what RFK is saying here, maybe those conversations are. He's just like, nope, I'm not going to get into another conflict. We can't be in the Middle East for too much longer. We're trying to pull out. We're trying to pull out like I do with Obama. I don't have that strong pull-out game. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to pull out. We're not trying to go in. We're trying to pull out. You keep it in too long, bad things happen.
Oh Christ!
You end up having babies like Al Pacino.
But at least he'd be old enough to still be around.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
old is Obama now? He is aging like fine wine, though, I have to admit. He
He's
must
in
be
his
what?
50s. In his 50s, I
He's
think, right?
60, surely.
Maybe early 60s. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, regardless, let's continue.
So, but what his view was is that he believed that the view of Americans abroad should not be, a soldier with a gun. It should be a Peace Corps volunteer building, wells, and it should be USAID helping poor people, and it should be Alliance for Progress building middle class. And that's what he did. And he just started the Kennedy Milk Program to give nutrition to poor kids all over the world. As a result of that, in Africa today, there are more statues to John Kennedy, more boulevards named after him, more hospitals, schools, universities, avenues in all the major cities named after him than any other president. And that is the Chinese have taken that template and done the same thing now. And they are, all these countries that were supposedly allied with us are now realigning with the Chinese, and they're switching to their currency because the Chinese are not there to kill people. They're there, to build roads, to build universities, to build colleges. And it turns out that people like that a lot more. And, we should be projecting economic power around the globe and not military power. It will make us much stronger.
But what do you think happens when you get into office? Like if you're talking about your uncle who was assassinated, and you believe the intelligence agencies were part of that, what happens to you?
Well, I got to be careful. I'm aware of that, and I'm not. I'm aware of that danger, and I don't live in fear of it, at all. But I'm not stupid about it, and I take precautions.
That's a bit morbid.
But it's realistic. That's something like, I mean, he is a Kennedy. They have a history with the CIA.
After all this,
Yeah,
this fits.
I mean, yeah.
Here's my thing. I know you've been talking to me so much about RFK Jr. and everything. I'm listening to him here for the first time, really. He seems intelligent. I I don't agree with what he's talking about with China. I don't think I think everybody knows what China's game is. They are willfully going along with being manipulated by China just because China's throwing money everywhere and everybody wants money. But China has enough of their own fucking problems. They're not exactly going to be taking over. They're not going to become the standard bearer. The yuan is not going to become
The
the
dollar
dollar anytime soon. China has enough problems, mainly uh, their one-child policy
has really
now
bit
with
them
a
in the
bunch of
ass.
mama's boys
Yeah,
who don't want to do shit and are upset because there ain't no women that they can have sex with. They can't have babies of their own. There's two. That's why. Why do you think they are bringing? They're bringing in women from Laos, from Cambodia, from
really.
Korea. From
Oh,
there's
because
men
of
and women.
the one-child policy, everyone was
There's
killing the
they're
daughters because they
all
wanted a son.
boys.
Yeah.
Who are they gonna? And then they're like, I have no, I can't get it. There's no women. I'm working my ass off. Now you want to potentially have me fight people that are just like me in Taiwan potentially? Like what? Huh?
Yeah.
What life am I leaving
Yeah, no,
here?
China has a lot of
China has a
problems.
mass. They have their so many. Not least say they were dragging people out of their homes during COVID and everything. I mean,
Well, locking them in.
bloody hell. The only reason why they contain power is because they're communistic and they have centralized power amongst a small group that makes
Yeah.
all the decisions,
Yeah.
and they have minions who just follow along because they're afraid if they do
Yeah.
anything else, they get whacked.
Yes.
That's the only reason why they have maintained power. If they were a democracy, there'd be a fucking revolution already. Do you think the people they also China doesn't allow just free information everywhere.
No.
They curtail everything their people see.
Thanks, Google.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks Alibaba. So, but even he had to stop saying a bunch of shit. What's his face?
The millionaire who disappeared.
Yeah, I can't remember. No. He's still around. The billionaire from Alibaba. I can't remember his name.
I think he's the one who disappeared. There's a really big, famous Chinese billionaire who's been like disappeared for a while now.
I don't hear about that.
Like a good 3 or 4 years.
But anyway, my point about RFK here is one, I disagree with his points about China. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. We did a little bit of a short about the Brazil and Chinese, but the rest of the world, as long as the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are like this, ain't nothing happening.
Well, China just brokered a deal between the Saudis and the Iranians. That was honestly one of the better parts of the Trump presidency was the Abraham Accords. When he started getting everyone in the Middle East, from Israel to the Saudis, to align against the Iranians.
Yeah, it's like let's just all make money.
Yeah, let's make money, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And like
Right.
the Saudis were kind of saying to the Palestinian authorities, like, pipe down and shut up.
Yeah.
Because Iran is a much bigger threat to all of us right now.
Yeah, particularly if they get a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, which they are.
And they're going to go after Israel first.
They are on the verge of
the
that.
Persians and the Arabs are not exactly friendly.
And neither
go back hundreds and thousands, not hundred thousands, thousands of years and hundreds of years.
Neither of the Sunnis and the Shiites.
Right.
Which
they're not.
Which is a whole
friendlies.
thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
But honestly, my my perception of this RFK Jr. interview is that I agree with you on foreign policy. He sounds well-meaning but naive. But when it comes, honestly, from what I've seen of domestic policy, where he says that he respects the Constitution and the Second Amendment, like you really hear that out of Democrats these days.
I just don't. But the problem
And
is,
the fact that he wants to take on the administrative state and this blob, which I said earlier,
yeah,
for me, that is the most important thing in America right now. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, as someone is going to cut the CIA and the FBI down to size and put it back in its place. That's what I want in our
Yeah.
next president.
yeah. My biggest problem is his voice is annoying.
Everyone says that. And
I mean, but it's true.
For someone who loves,
I'm telling you.
for someone who loves policy, when I hear like a lot of people narrow it down to like what I would consider superficial things, but they do actually matter.
the problem,
they do matter.
because he's the face of the country.
Yeah.
And imagine him
But
being
apparently
in conversations.
he got that from a some kind of I forget what the condition.
It doesn't matter. The point is that's how he sounds now.
You like get some vocal surgery.
It's just, but no, I wouldn't want him to do that. That's ridiculous. But I'm just saying it could hurt him
on a debate stage.
What debate stage? They're not having any fucking debates. I mean, come
the
on.
Democrats are refusing.
Yeah. You know why? Because if they put him up against Biden, it would
Biden
be night and day.
apart.
Even with his voice.
Yeah.
Look, if he was up against a regular field of people, he probably would lose because of his voice. Just because that's a weirdly humanistic, psychological thing that we all care about. We want to see somebody who looks strong. Having a weird kind of feckless voice makes him seem weak, and people go, I don't want the person
stand up.
Yeah, but the problem was Biden went against Trump. That's what I'm saying. If Biden, that's why they're not putting anybody up against Biden, not doing any debates, because they don't want him to look feckless or weak. They want to use Biden as, again, the standard bearer against the evil, mighty Trump that they want to be running again because they want the same battle and say, hey, I know this guy's dead, but a dead man's better than Trump. I mean, that's
again,
it's literally the argument.
Don't compare me with the Almighty. Compare me with the alternative.
Right, and that's why they don't want.
Shut him off.
That's why they don't want DeSantis. That's why you can't not have presidential debates. For the country. How are you going to shut that down? And let me tell you, if they did, everybody should vote for whoever the Republican candidate is if they shut down the debates. If Biden doesn't show up to debates, then you have to elect the other. Like, on principle, you should vote for whoever the Republican candidate is, because how can you support somebody who won't even debate? So you can hear the differences in what they want to do for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, again, some people just vote for Biden because they hate Trump or they just hate the GOP.
Yes,
but any rational person, which is the majority of the country, at least they, to my knowledge, humans have brains. Whether or not they use them is a matter of discussion and debate. But
ironically,
but they at least have brains, and most people have eyes, and most people have ears. This makes up a human. Other anatomy can be debated. And what you want to call yourself, these things can all be debated. But the general functionalities and things of human beings are typically the same for the majority of people. And in that scenario, I feel like on duty and principle as a citizen, you just have to vote for the person who's willing to debate versus the person who wouldn't debate. Because you should be very, very scared of the person who doesn't want to have a debate. FYI.
Yeah.
But then in regards to RFK, he's got the green foot. They don't. RFK against Biden is the same as like a Biden against Trump such scenario. RFK would probably lose into a grander a field where he's up against like-minded individuals who can speak well and whatever. Think of like even RFK like against a Tulsi Gabbard. I would actually take Tulsi Gabbard because she seems like a person who could hold the power of the presidency well.
Yeah.
Like I would be okay with a Tulsi Gabbard, honestly.
I would
and she's reasonable.
That honestly, my dream Democratic ticket would be RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard.
Sounds like a great ticket.
For me, I really would consider voting
that versus like a DeSantis Scott, DeSantis Haley or something.
That would be what
America needs.
Finally, the baby boomers have gone. They're
That would
finally retired.
that would be
Like, wow.
that would be a presidential election I as an American would be proud of, and I would be okay with whoever won. Even if I didn't agree with all their policies, I'd be like, I'm good with
a
this.
new generation
We're
and
okay.
a new start.
Yeah, just
You
like
know?
it's just better. It's just
Yeah.
this is what we would think America would be able to produce, like competent people. Maybe we disagree with some of their points, but they at least like make sense.
And love
They can
and
put
love the
sentences
country.
together,
And more importantly, they love the country.
and they love the country.
And actually want to make
Make
the
it
country
better.
better.
Yeah,
You know?
all of these things, but that's the one problem I see with him. But this is why they're also trying to silence him, because he's also making sense with a lot of things.
What would you
And the Democratic Party doesn't want people to hear things that make sense. They want to continue to push their agenda. They want to continue to make you dumb. They want to continue to
and
make
use
you rely on the
Biden,
government,
yes, and
and
use
they
Biden
don't
as
want
a
you to
Trojan
be
horse
actually able
do
to
it.
think.
See,
And they're unhappy with all the rebellion and pushback that they are currently receiving
within
in
their own
America.
party.
And now, like we were talking about, even with kids in schools, there's we won't get into that more, but
Oh yeah,
all of that is
but
happening.
so for me, this is my grand.
Yeah, this is your thing. So I'm on you. You say you
This-
you go T, you go.
This is my grand hope with the RFK Jr. candidacy. First of all, he's polling at about 20% in the Democratic primaries. That's as high as DeSantis is polling in the Republican primaries right now. So what does that tell you? What that tells me is that there is still a strong quarter of grassroots Democrats who want a change from Biden, and they want a viable alternative. They want something
Yeah, the
else.
liberals.
And the old school classical liberals.
The Bill Maher's of the world.
Yes, and RFK Jr. when he launched his debate and said, I thought it was a great piece of political marketing. His shirt said, "I am a Kennedy Democrat." That rings so true to someone like me because my family were Kennedy Democrats, old school liberals who believed in a functioning, well run welfare state where no one got left behind, but at the same time, people loved America and the principles it was founded upon, and they knew that this was the best place to get ahead if they worked hard. The Democratic Party, I feel now, especially its kind of Jacobin elite, have forgotten about that. And when he says stuff about how they've forgotten the middle class, yeah, he's right. Like that was my family. They were those Kennedy classical liberal Democrats. And I'm hoping, like I said, for foreign policy sounds a bit naive to me. But when he says things like the federal government got tyrannical during COVID, yes, they did. When he says things like the administrative state, the CIA, the FBI needs to be cut down to size and put back in its place, yes. When he says he loves the Constitution and respects the Second Amendment and that issue is settled, and I'm like, yes, that's the guy for me. So I'm starting to think at this moment, like in American history, whilst he may be a bit naive on the foreign policy, we as Americans need to kind of focus on ourselves for a little bit and realign and readjust and remember how great this country is. And if he's the candidate who's able to do that, yeah, I'd consider him. And
Yeah,
that's
like I
what I
said, me
hope.
too.
You know,
But it's just interesting a lot of things he said. I mean, even about his safety, that's another concern. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean,
you know,
do you
the
blame him?
CIA does stuff without any of us knowing what they're
The
doing.
CIA is a history of not liking Kennedy.
The problem is, here's the problem. As much as we are complaining about what the CIA does, it is a necessary evil as well in the
Yeah,
grand scheme of protecting
and
the interests
I
and the
agree with
people
that.
of this country.
I
Could you
agree.
have, it would be better if there were people running it who did it in a more ethical way, but the way the CIA operates and the stuff that they have to do
is
is a
is
business that
necessary.
lends to being unethical.
Yes,
Otherwise, you can't do the things you need to do in the realms that they play in
and
that they
play
operate in.
it, and I understand that.
It's unfortunate, but it is.
I understand that, but at the same time, it needs to be put back into its place, and its place is
Mm.
to protect America abroad. I don't want them getting involved and interfering with American elections, which they and the FBI have proven to have been over the past 7 to 8 years, effectively. That's what
Yeah,
I mean by wanting
but
it
if there are
put
any,
back into its place.
but they will inherently get involved. Well, the FBI will at the very least, but the CIA will also inherently get involved in American elections because foreign actors are also trying to influence American elections. So by its nature, it would still have to be involved because ideally in safeguarding and protecting, not interfering.
Yeah, that yes,
But
that's a
but
fine
then the
line.
argument becomes
That's a
is
fine
any
line.
adherence interference in any way. So there, it gets really dicey real quick, that argument. But the premise you are arguing for, I agree with in the uh
Ethical
in
sense.
the ethical moralistic sense. When in the practical sense, it becomes dicey.
I don't. I remember. Oh, I think it was like 2015 or 2016 when Chuck Schumer was having an interview with Rachel Maddow. Have you seen this interview?
Can't say for sure.
I believe it was at that time. And he said, I think Trump was either president or president elect at this point. And he said to her, when you threaten the security agencies, they've got a million different ways of coming at you. I saw that and I thought, yes, but he is the president now. He is their boss. What are you? Are you like? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Are you like? I'm like.
Look,
They
let
shouldn't
me
be coming after the elected
look,
president.
look. Let me
That's what I mean by them
let me try and speak
getting
some.
out of their
Let me try and
place.
make some truth bombs here.
Go for it.
I don't think the CIA gives two fucking rats ass shits who the president of the United States is. It's their boss in name only. They operate unbeknownst
Yeah,
to
but they're
what
not
the
accountable
president.
to anybody.
Again, the argument can be made if you try to regulate or do too much oversight on what they do you actually harm the things that they're actually able to do? It is one of those necessary evils where you hope they do more good, but they might do a lot of evil in the process. But the world operates and functions in a way where we're not all killing ourselves to a degree. So,
Mm,
are they doing enough where the benefits outweigh the costs? I what you that is something to be argued. I can't say for sure 100%, but I don't think the CIA fucking cares who the bloody president is because they're gonna be like, right,
I
we're
think
gonna do whatever else
I
we're gonna
see
do, and
but it's
the
that
president is not gonna know everything they're doing.
it's that but that he should.
No, he shouldn't.
You don't think so?
Absolute fuck no,
He's the
no, absolutely
boss.
not. Doesn't matter.
He's the
How many
command.
CEOs don't know what's going on in their company? We argued this the other
He
day.
is the commander in chief.
He can't know everything, or
He should
she.
know. Yes, he should. They should know CIA policy. They should know what the CIA is doing.
He gets an update, and the CIA director is going to tell him the stuff he should know.
Okay.
And they're going to do a bunch of the stuff that he's not going to know
Is
about.
it not the president's prerogative for him to say or her? Was it not their prerogative?
Let me tell you something.
To say
Have
I
you
don't want you spying in
you
this
ever
country, or they spying on this, or collecting these people's records, and it's their job to obey
have
an order from their commander in chief.
Have you ever seen the movie Independence Day?
Yes, I have. What the fuck do aliens have to? Oh,
Do you remember the scene where he goes, "Why didn't I know about this facility?" And his CIA director was like, something to the effect of, "It wasn't. deemed necessary for you to know about this facility where they have
Yeah,
the
but
aliens?
he's the guy. That's my point.
And
Principal time.
do you
He's the
remember?
guy that we
Do
elect.
you remember his
We
reason?
elect him.
Do
or
you
her.
remember the reason why that character said
Why?
plausible deniability? If you are the president, there are certain things that your government needs to be doing that you should not know about, and it's played out with Obama, it's played out with Clinton, it's played out with every president. So when the time comes for the American people to give oversight into even what their elected president does, the president can say, "I had no idea what was going on,"
Is
and
this
we all go, "How the hell did you not know?"
is
And it's
this
because these motherfuckers were not telling them on purpose so they could do the shit they actually
yeah,
need to
but
do. Because even in this RFK example, if they did stuff and the president knows and the president says no, they can't do some shit that might actually be important that needs to be
Is
happening.
this Iran Contra when they were selling weapons to the guys who were fighting the Sandinistas with drug money?
Possibly.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, this is how the world moves, man.
I know,
I'm
but
not disagreeing with your premise. I'm just explaining what is the reality,
see
practicality of the situation.
that for me is an organization that's got too much power and too much
What are you
independence.
gonna regulate the CIA?
Huh?
You gonna regulate the CIA?
I think some effort should be made to, yes, even a little bit. They shouldn't just be
I
able
don't
just
know.
to do whatever they
I
want.
mean, good luck, dude. How?
I know, and that's
The way they do it is through congressional hearings, like they do. Congress has the power, more power than the president, honestly, to do oversight on the CIA.
and they should.
They are. They
should.
do.
But yeah,
And then the CIA says we can't divulge that. It's classified.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a game, dude. It's all a game. Everything is a game. Game theory. Go read the book. It's game theory. It's all a game. And it needs to be that way. And it's gonna frustrate the hell out of people who want to have common sense and be have accountability and stuff. But in some cases, I just feel like you can't. And what RFK Jr. is saying here is partly the reasons for it. I, again, the argument his uncle JFK doesn't put in the troops in Cuba and overthrow Fidel Castro. Here's an interesting comment. Would we be dealing with Justin Trudeau if they had taken out Fidel Castro?
Okay.
Would Canada be where it is? Think about that. If JFK sends in American troops, takes out Fidel Castro, would Justin Trudeau even exist and be doing all the crazy shit he's doing in Canada?
Is this not not Fidel Castro's son? Obviously, Trudeau.
I think that's
I mean, they do. It is pretty
pretty
eerie
obvious.
how similar they
His
look.
mom, they all admit they went to Cuba and did all kinds of crazy stuff.
They were swingers, weren't they?
Yeah.
His parents. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Nothing against
Castro's
swinging,
son, man.
but it does have consequences. It
That-
does have side effects.
I'm just telling you. I'm just positing the question. So my point is, that's these scenarios occur, and does it make sense? Does it not make sense? When you don't do certain things, if you tell a president and the president says no, you're right. He's the boss. You can't do it, because if you do it, you could be in trouble and you lose your career and everything. If you don't tell the president, plausible deniability on the president, it goes wrong. He never knew about it. Somebody else takes the fall. You find a fall guy, that person, general, somebody, and you still do the things that you think are necessary to be done to protect the country and do it what's in the best, theoretically, in the country's
As
best
long
interest.
as what they're doing is protecting the country and not interfering.
There's gonna be a little bit of here and there and everything in between, unfortunately, because that's the nature of the business they're in. Clandestine operations, dude. That's clandestine. Look up the definition. It's like it's gonna be nefarious shit most of the time. What do you want to do?
It does amaze me how all of this plausible deniability never helped Richard Nixon, did it?
Well, there were tapes, buddy. Come on. I am not a crook. Well, yeah, tapes.
Really? You probably should have taken the tape recorder
You
out of the
shoulda-
Oval Office, Dick.
Should probably
Yeah, tricky Dick.
should have probably burned those tapes.
Yeah.
but there it is. Too bad because he was a decent president up until that point. But nevertheless,
He
anyway,
actually kind of was, wasn't he?
yeah, generally. Well, he did open up China, which also is now debatable. Was that a good move? But never. I mean,
Well, he did also found
theoretically, yes, for the progress of the world and the economy in general. But now it's created have just like
quite a powerful China.
just like the Japanese admiral, I forget his name, said after Yamamoto. Yes, thank you. Who said that we've unleashed a sleeping giant?
Yeah,
Did Nixon opening up China theoretically open up a sleeping giant?
that's why Midway was so important, bro. If the Japanese, can you imagine if the Japanese had actually gotten hold of Midway?
All of those.
They would have
Literally,
much
that
kicked us out
war,
of the
that
Pacific,
Pacific
right, at
War
that
was won
point.
by little inches.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. It really
Fascinating
was.
history, but
Yeah.
we don't have time for that. So, anyway, what do you think about RFK? Would you vote for RFK? You like what he said?
Yes. Are you?
Does this interest you to want to learn more about him?
Yes, absolutely. Are you RFK all the way? I know. Sorry, his dad was the greatest president we never had. All right, I'm in my. Sorry, I love the Kennedys, but yeah, his dad. Yeah. Anyway, so RFK Jr. Do you want to learn more? Are you interested in voting for him? What do you think of his candidacy? How do you think he'll change the country and the Democratic Party? Let us know. We'd love to hear about
What do
it.
you think about the military-industrial complex?
Yeah,
We talked about it.
that's a big one.
Let us know
That's
your
a
general
biggie.
comments. Yeah. Let us know what you think, how this is all affecting. We covered a lot in this episode, but this is what's happening in the times. And we are not going to stop talking about the times because we are men of the times. And we are looking forward to talking with you next time.